What's up, everybody? Welcome into the inaugural episode of the College Chaos Podcast. I am Garrett Ross alongside my man Jack McKenzie, and we have a ton of stuff to get to today. We're going to take a look at the national championship game coming up on Monday. We will also get into the ever-changing landscape of Pac-12 quarterbacks, which has really been remarkable when you look at this conference really being on the deathbed and now rising like a phoenix. We'll also get into what the hell is going on in Stillwater, Oklahoma, man. Like, I don't know exactly. It's just utter chaos. So we're definitely going to dive into that. And we're also going to talk a little hoops. And we got a big game coming up, top 25 matchup on Saturday here in Waco.
Heck yeah.
Between K-State, Jerome Tang coming back. You got Baylor men coming off an 0-2 start in conference play, which is
really rough loss.
Bro, that is not ideal for anybody. But let's get into this. So if you haven't seen us before, we're usually behind the scenes in everything that goes on here with 365 Sports and also Sikkim365.com. Jack is tremendous at what he does regarding photos, video, all of that stuff. The man kills it. I'm usually producing the afternoon show, 365 Sports, with Smokey, Paul, and Craig. I've been with them for a minute, really going back to like 2017. So it's been an honor to come over here and get reunited with those guys. I also do some women's basketball coverage. Free Dre all day. I'm talking to you, Kentucky. But before we do this, man, let's just dive into this. So when you look at this game, it's going to be interesting because, full disclosure, I'm an LSU fan when it comes down to it. So you would think like I'm riding with the SEC. That's not the case. I want the Frogs to win this matchup. And Jack, last night I was going home and I was listening to the Snaps podcast with T-Bob Haybear and Aaron Murray. And if you're not listening to this podcast, you are doing a disservice to yourself, America.
I guess I'm doing a disservice to myself.
Bro, you got to get on this. Yeah. But the funny topic they were bringing up is how do you ride with your conference in a game like this, or do you ride with a team in general? And it reminded me of a conversation that we were having last week, you and I and Jacob Wilson, who also he's host of the Shooting the Shield podcast. Get on that. And he also does some production work, tremendous behind the camera as well.
He does a bunch of the production work for Grayson here on Crystal Ball College Football.
Yeah, absolutely. Jacob's one in a million guy. But it was funny because I'm of the camp where I'm riding with TCU in this matchup, and I know you're a Baylor alum.
Yeah, I don't think I can ride with TCU. I think it's going to be a good game, but my conference allegiance only goes so far, and I guess that's what we're about to get into a bit.
Yeah, but so I when I'm looking at this matchup, man, I want the Frogs to win. I think they've been a tremendous story all year long. And then when you go in and you look at that game with Michigan, nobody gave them a chance. They've been the underdog all year long. They come out, punch them in the mouth, keep rolling. And I'm not saying that they're going to be able to do that against Georgia. This is going to be a totally different matchup, but I feel like they could really, that 3-3-5 is going to be able to test Georgia. I'm not worried about their offense. I feel like they're kind of suspect other than Bowers, but what are you looking at as far as keys into this game, and why are you so high on Georgia, other than you don't want the Frogs to win?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm so high on Georgia. I really do think that that it's going to be a somewhat close game. In my mind, it's going to end up being one of those games that's like 2 possessions, final score line's 1, TCU can't get like an onside kick at the end. But I think that all comes down to the advantage Georgia will, I believe, have in the trenches. I think that's where they're going to limit TCU's run game. They're going to make them a bit more one-dimensional. But even then, Ohio State seemed like they were kind of way too one-dimensional, and they still put up 41 and honestly had kind of should have won that game.
Yeah, I understand that. When I'm looking at this, I think the first thing you're going to look to in any college football matchup is the quarterbacks, right? Like, they're going to garner the most attention. And when you look at Stetson Bennett, he's got the natty under his belt, but it's not necessarily from the work he's done, right? It's the pieces around him, and they've done a really good job. They're so cohesive. Max Duggan, on the other hand, while he's got the pieces around him, he's got more of that dog in him. Like, he's going to just run through a wall.
He is putting them on his back sometimes, and like that's the kind of quarterback I'd love to play for. It's the kind of quarterback, I hate to say it, it's tough to root against.
Oh yeah, dude.
But like, I don't think he can carry them through this one.
I think he can. And the reason I say that is I feel like his feet, his versatility will give Georgia some trouble. I think that when you look on the outside, I think when you got a guy like Quentin Johnson that you can really rely on, I don't think that while Georgia's defense is really their bread and butter, their secondary is suspect. I think Ohio State really proved that. And if Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't get hurt, that's possibly a different game. Jackson Smith and Jigba, he didn't play. And while Georgia's secondary has seen some offenses this year, I mean, going back to Tennessee, right? Like they held Tennessee in check and kind of ended their hopes for anything.
Yeah, that was kind of a sad one.
It was sad. I wanted to see Hendon Hooker do his thing.
Blood.
I like Jalen Hyatt, but
they went out there and they earned it.
They did, but I feel like they haven't really seen receivers of the caliber that TCU has. And
outside of Quentin Johnston, though, like Quentin's on a different level, but like I don't know about the others.
Okay, I feel like Quentin. Well, I believe yes. I believe across the board TCU is better than most of the cores that that Georgia has seen this year, and it's just going to be interesting to see if they could take the top off of that. What really concerns me in this matchup, if you're a Frogs fan, is, like you said earlier, the depth in the trenches. When you look at Georgia, man, you got guys like Jalen Carter on the line, and you got even some other players. But I got my phone ringing over here, NRS. So I really feel that's going to be the thing, because when you go back to even when Baylor saw Georgia, they were young. This core group right now was young, but it's just so much depth. They're able to rotate in and out. I think if TCU's offensive line can hold up, the Frogs have a great chance. But they haven't been able to. While Michigan was probably the best, do you think Michigan was the best defensive line they played?
I mean, yeah, I think so. Because I'm trying to think back through their season, and Texas's defense definitely came on. They struggled there. Baylor's defensive line had the talent. They did not produce anywhere near where they should have, but they had the talent, and that was a close-ass game. So
it was. So
it make the amount they were able to score on Michigan makes me question how good of a defense as a whole that was. But Georgia just has those different guys. They've got possibly the best defensive lineman in the nation, and that means something.
It does. And I could not think of Jalen Carter without going back to that LSU game when he picked up Jalen Daniels like a rag doll, bro.
That was so disrespectful.
That stole my soul.
Oh, my gosh.
But, I think TCU is going to be interesting because they really have to come out and get the ground game established.
Absolutely.
And I don't really know if Kendre Miller is going to be available. I know yesterday on 365 Sports in the afternoon, the voice of the Frogs, Brian Estridge, was on there, and he was talking about how he believes Kendre Miller will play. Obviously, it's questionable, and you're going to say that up until the last one.
He's going to play.
Yeah, he's going to play.
And
he essentially was like...
Now, it's how effective is he when he's playing.
That's true. But he was essentially like, you're going to have to take his helmet. And I think you will, but what you saw from DeMarcado, if you're a Frogs fan, has definitely got to give you some hope, man. He really balled out. He had a career high over 150 yards.
He's a solid back.
He is.
He's a solid back.
And then you throw in, okay, I'm going back home to Cali.
Yep.
Like, dude, you can literally go outside and see the
their
stadium.
Media notes, man. They said he grew up walking distance from SoFi Stadium. Like, check the math there. I don't think SoFi Stadium existed when he grew up there.
They probably didn't, but
I know.
It was that old parking lot over there.
You got to put stuff like that in there, but like,
the thing with me is the depth. Like, I think that TCU being such an old team is really going to benefit them. When you look at their roster, man, they got 8 guys who have started over 30 games, 14 who have started over 20. While everybody's going to look at the talent and they're going to be like, well, Georgia's got the blue chips. There's all that disparity. I don't give a damn, dude. Like, if experience sometimes outweighs talent, and I think you see that a lot of times, and that's one of those aspects, man, that gets overlooked. And in a game like this, TCU's already feeling disrespected. They've been the underdog all year long, but I think that
not many people believe in them.
No, and I don't understand it at this point. Like, why are you not giving them their due respect? It's because they're small, they're private.
Like, for me personally, I hope I'm giving them the respect they deserve. Like, I think they have every shot at winning this game. But where the experience comes in, I think, is if they keep it close. If it is tight in the third quarter, that's when that experience means that much more. those extra starts that TCU has on those young blue chips at Georgia, that's when I think that they can start being like, we've been here. We've earned all this. We know what we're doing. We're the real dogs in this fight. They're the young guys who don't know what this adversity is like. They've been through the knife fight of the Big 12. They had to survive here in Waco. They had to survive down in Austin. They had to keep winning these close games. They've been doing it all year. So.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing too. Like when you look at TCU, they're not scared of competition, and they're undefeated in 1 score games. I think other than going back to the Big 12 championship, and obviously that was one bad play call away from them coming away victorious. Yeah. And look, I'm not going to take anything away from K-State. Their defense played tremendous. Knowles got hurt. It is what it is. And I think that losing to TCU earlier in the year kind of puts a little ump in your step. You want to come back and get it on them, but. I just really feel like TCU isn't scared of the moment. I think that they're looking over across the line and they're thinking, okay, well, it's the SEC power. Everybody's going, but that doesn't. While a lot of people, when you step on the field, you might be intimidated by the aura. Or you're playing the defending champion. TCU's got some grit, dude. Like they don't give a damn, and that's
Sonny
one of the
Dykes
things.
Don't give a damn.
He doesn't,
and his team don't give a damn.
And I think it's one of the most beautiful things. But so when I look at this and I thought going back to that podcast last night, just listened to Aaron Murray. He was talking about the 3-3-5 because that was a big point of emphasis on the Michigan game. They thought that the Wolverines thought that they were just going to come in and pound the ball. That's what they want you to do, dude. Yeah. They want you to run right through the gaps. But I think that defense is going to be set up perfectly because when I look at this Georgia team, while they're very sound, their running game hasn't been what it's been in the past. Their offensive line, while it's good, they don't have the depth and they don't have the consistency of the defensive line. So I think they're vulnerable. Their playmakers on the outside, while they're good and most teams in the nation would take them, they're not elite. I think TCU has more team speed. They have more playmakers on the offensive side to match up with, and I think that's really going to be a key in this game. And that's why I'm kind of leaning more towards the Frogs here, dude.
Yeah, I see all that. I hear all that. And I still think, man, Georgia just knows how to put all those pieces together. They're not blowing you away at any single position there on offense.
Tight end.
He's injured though, isn't he?
Nah, Bowers is going to play.
Is he going to be able to play full out though?
I think
even then, I still think they're deep. They know how to play within themselves. They know their roles, and they go out there and they execute.
That's fair. I can see that. But all right. Why do you think, like when you look at this matchup, what makes you nervous about, what's the most concerning thing if you're a TCU Horned Frog? Like when you look at Georgia, what scares you the most about that team?
Honestly, there's no individual that scares me besides Jalen Carter, maybe. And it's just that they grind you out. More than Michigan ever did all year. They made it through the SEC. They take down high-powered offenses like Tennessee. They just go and they handle their business.
That's fair. So, all right. So this game right now, when you're looking at it, it's a 14-point spread. I feel like this game could go either way. I know we were talking before we went on air, and I felt like this could be a low-scoring game. I think people are looking at it and expecting a big, high-flying matchup like we saw in the semifinals.
Yeah, I mean, after those semifinals, it would feel weird if it wasn't.
But that's the thing. I feel like once both teams have put enough on film after that game to where TCU can look at how Ohio State attacked them. And I think that Georgia hasn't been tested all year like that. So they're going to tighten that up. But I just feel like TCU has the opportunity to methodically pick them apart. And I don't know if the defenses are going – I think the defenses are going to clamp down compared to what we saw last week. I feel like once you've had some of those vulnerabilities tested, you get the work put in, and I think you're going to see more of a slow flow game compared to what we saw last week. And I think that's going to be like, if you're Georgia, you're going to let TCU run on you. But you can't let Quentin Johnston beat you. You can't let Jared Wiley get involved. I think he's kind of a guy that, when you look at the tight end position, all the talk is going to go over to Brock Bowers. I think Jared Wiley can be a key factor and kind of like the underlying Robin that sneaks in and steals the show for TCU. But at the same time, It's going to be tough. Georgia's tough, but I think this could be one of those games where everybody's expecting it to be a shootout, but we're going to see the complete opposite.
I see you on that. I hear you on that. I fully disagree on that.
That's fair.
I think you see all those weaknesses exposed, and I think that the offensive schemes and the individuals executing those schemes are just going to be too damn good to be stopped, even with the adjustments. I do not see it going down below mid-30s.
Man, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. But looking at this, TCU has won 4 consecutive games over ranked opponents. And I think that when
I don't see Duggan, Johnston, Miller, DeMarcado. I don't see those guys not putting up 35. And I still think they're the team that's going to lose.
they can put up 35, and I think most of the thing is they're going to have to really test Georgia's secondary. I think that's where they're kind of vulnerable. When you look at a guy like Keely Ringo, you know, while he's had his bright moments, even going back to the national championship against Alabama, or when he got the pick six, he's been kind of suspect this year. So I'm really interested to see what he's able to do, and if Georgia can draw up, because he can't single cover, he's not going to be able to single cover Johnson. So how did they do that schematically?
If they start playing zone, they're just going to get killed with mesh routes and under Sam over Mikes and plenty of that stuff. So I am nervous for Georgia's secondary.
I am too. So when you're looking at this and you're expecting it to be a high flying affair, what's your outcome? What's your score looking like for this game?
My score is looking something like 45-42. TCU misses that onside kick after they get it to 42, you know?
All right. I think I'm going to ride. I'm going to take TCU. I'm going to go TCU 37-35 in this matchup.
Okay, that's not as low as I thought you were.
Well, the more you kind of made me nervous, dude. I'm not gonna lie. I was thinking like in the 20s for a second, and then I was like, man,
stick with it. Stick with it. Come on,
dude. I can't, man. I don't want to be that guy that just gets shamed like that. But
no, man. Watch it come true now. Watch it come true.
Oh, it definitely will. That's how it works, bro. And that's how that works. But what's funny is Ohio State was just they got lucky to get in there to play Georgia. I think a lot of people really expected USC to sneak into that, which is really intriguing. And they really just kind of shit the bed in the Pac-12 championship. Utah just took it to them, and it is what it is. But when you have a guy like Caleb Williams, everybody wanted that storyline. And it made me think, dude, about how the Pac-12 next year is going to be so loaded at the quarterback position after just coming from dead, dude. I don't think anybody was expecting. Honestly, I think everybody was expecting Oregon and Washington to bounce and this thing to fold. That's obviously still up in the air. Kevin Warren, the Big Ten commissioner, we don't know what he's going to do. He's got one foot out the door looking at NFL things. But
there's a lot of stuff up in the air.
There's a lot going on. But I want to dive into these Pac-12 quarterbacks. I think it's an intriguing storyline, and it's a lot that we can get into. So that's what we're going to do next. Right here, we're going to get into the Pac-12 quarterbacks. You're listening to the College Chaos Podcast, part of the 365 Sports Network.